Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really fascinating question, one that gets right to the heart of identity and history. What makes the people of the Philippines look so incredibly different? Our sources, well, they paint this amazing picture, almost like the Philippines is a living map. You can see centuries of history, migration, trade, adaptation right there in people's features, eye color, skin, hair, even face shape. So our mission today is to unpack all this incredible diversity for you. We'll be looking at the genetics, yeah, but also the history that shaped these, more than 600 islands. We're going on a bit of a journey through these sources, find some surprising stuff, and, connect the dots. Okay, so let's dive in. Where do we start? I guess the history, right? Historians stress this point. The Philippines has always been a crossroads, like a major hub. You've got these early Austronesian settlers, amazing seafarers coming down from Taiwan maybe 4,000 years ago. That's a foundation.
That's right. And it wasn't just one wave. After them, you had more people arriving, from Malaysia, Indonesia, even as far off as South Asia, each group adding another layer.
And then on top of that foundation, you layer on traders and colonizers.
Exactly. Arab traders were crucial. Chinese merchants, too, setting up these really important trade routes. They brought goods, but also genes and culture.
And then, of course, the Spanish, arriving in the 1500s.
And staying for 300 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, they left a huge indelible mark. Every single one of these encounters, these periods, added to this mosaic we see today.
So it's not just history buffs saying this. The genetics actually backs it up.
Oh, absolutely. What's really fascinating is how well the history and the genetics line up. There was research, pretty recent, 2017, I think, that gives us a clear picture. It found that Filipinos across the board share about 80 to 85% Austronesian ancestry. So that really confirms those big early migration waves you mentioned.
Okay, 85%. But what about the rest? That's where the diversity really comes in, I suppose.
Precisely. That's where you see the other influences. The studies show about 10 to 15% East Asian admixture, genetic blending. That's strongest up in northern Luzon. Then there's around 5 to 10% South Asian and Arab input. You see that more in Mindanao and along the coasts, which makes sense with those old trade routes.
Right, mapping onto the history and the Spanish influence.
Yep, it's there too. Smaller traces, genetically speaking, but definitely discernible. A direct echo of those 3 centuries of rule.
Wow. So what does this actually mean then for understanding why people look so different from island to island or even within the same city?
Well, it means that this incredible mix of ancestry is precisely why. It's the reason a Filipino person might look, very Southeast Asian, while another might remind you of someone from a Pacific island, or have clear East Asian features, or even show hints of European heritage.
So it challenges that idea of a single Filipino look.
Completely. It's not one ethnicity. It's this amazing convergence, this blend, and that really shapes the internal conversation in the Philippines about identity, too.
Okay, that historical and genetic background is super helpful. Now let's get into the visible traits. Where do we start? Skin tone seems like a big one.
It really is. It's probably one of the first things you notice, the sheer range. The sources talk about a whole spectrum, from light brown, almost olive tones, right through to deep chocolate brown.
And is that variation random, or does geography play a part?
Geography is definitely key. You tend to see lighter shades more in northern Luzon, and also among what are called mestizo populations, people with more recent significant Chinese or Spanish mixing. But then, in the central and southern islands, darker tones are more common. And that reflects a couple of things. Stronger sun exposure over generations, obviously near the equator.
Makes sense.
And also, those areas often have populations with really strong, older Austronesian roots, who typically had darker complexions.
Do we have any, numbers on this? What percentage falls where?
Yeah, there's survey data. It suggests around 70% of Filipinos fall into those medium brown shades. Then maybe 20% are darker brown, and about 10% have the lighter olive or fair tones, often linked to that Chinese or Spanish ancestry we mentioned.
So a definite spectrum. But
Yeah.
this brings up something, well, a bit sensitive, doesn't it? The cultural side of skin tone.
It absolutely does. You can't talk about skin tone in the Philippines without touching on the cultural and historical weight it carries.
The sources mention this preference for lighter skin stemming from colonial times.
That's right. It's a significant thing. Colonial history really embedded this idea, and you still see it reflected in beauty standards in the media. In fact, the Philippines is one of the biggest markets in Asia for skin whitening products. It's a huge industry, multi-billion pesos.
Wow.
And yeah, it sparks a lot of debate. You have this push and pull between cultural pride, celebrating marina or brown skin, and what many see as this leftover colonial influence. It's complicated.
Deeply complicated. Okay, moving from skin tone. What about eyes? Is there as much variation there?
Less variation, actually.
Yeah.
For the vast majority of Filipinos, eye color is pretty consistent. Over 92% have dark brown or black eyes. That's really the dominant trait, linked back to those Austronesian roots again.
Over 92%, but I'm guessing that leaves room for some variation given the genetic mix?
Exactly. There are exceptions. The sources mention lighter eyes, hazel, amber, sometimes even grayish tones. They're not common, but they do pop up. You see them more often in families with known mestizo heritage or in places with a long history of Chinese and Spanish intermarriage, like Manila or Cebu.
So like 1 or 2% maybe?
Yeah, geneticists estimate about 1 to 2% of the population have these lighter eye colors. And it's interesting, you contrast that with some indigenous mountain groups, where deep brown eyes are almost universal. It shows how ancestry plays out visually.
Okay, skin, eyes. What about hair? You might think it's mostly straight and black, but is there more to it?
Yeah, there definitely is. Hair tells its own interesting story. So yes, straight black hair is the most common, maybe 60% of people. But then you have a pretty significant chunk, about 25%, with wavy hair, and another 15% or so have curly or even tightly coiled hair,
Really? Coiled hair, where do you see that most?
particularly in the Visayas, the Central Islands, and down in Mindanao. And that texture, the curly or coiled type, is thought to be linked to those deeper Austronesian seafaring roots and maybe even ancient contact with Melanesian peoples further south and east. It hints at really old connections.
Fascinating. So it's not just straight black. Any color variation too, or is black pretty standard?
Black definitely dominates, jet black mostly, but you do see dark brown, sometimes chestnut shades, especially in those mestizo lines again, where you have Chinese or Spanish genes in the mix. And occasionally you might even see hints of auburn, which likely traces back to Spanish ancestry. Subtle, but it's there.
This is incredible. Skin, eyes, hair, it paints such a diverse picture. What about facial features? Are there regional patterns there too?
Oh, absolutely. Facial features are maybe the most distinctive markers of diversity, according to the sources. They give some great examples. Like up in northern Luzon, the Tagalog and Ilocano people, you often see narrower faces, maybe straighter noses, and generally lighter skin.
Okay.
Then head south to the Visayas. Generally rounder faces are more common, broader noses, medium brown skin, a different general look.
And further south, Mindanao.
There, among groups like the Moro and the Lumad, you often see more of that South Asian and Arab influence we talked about, maybe sharper noses, darker skin, fuller lips sometimes.
And the indigenous groups, the mountain tribes.
Right, can't forget them. Groups like the Ifugao, Aeta, Igorot, they often have high cheekbones, darker skin tones. And the Aetas specifically have that tightly curled hair. It looks similar to some African groups, but genetically they're distinct, and they're among the very earliest people in the Philippines. There's even anthropological data, measuring things like nasal width, skull shape. These vary by up to 14% between different ethnic groups. It really quantifies the diversity.
14% difference. Wow, that's significant. It really drives home how varied people look. Now, our sources also touch briefly on height and build. What do they tell us?
Yeah, height gives another layer. Health data shows the average Filipino man is about 165 centimeters. It's 5'5", and the average woman is 154 centimeters, around 5'1".
Which is comparatively on the shorter side in Asia.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
And that's often linked to a mix of factors, genetics, but also nutrition plays a big role historically.
Is that average changing at all, and does it vary across the islands?
It is changing, actually. There was a survey in 2020 showing the younger generation is taller by maybe 2 or 3 centimeters on average over the last 30 years.
Huh. Better nutrition, maybe? Urban living?
Likely a combination of those things, yeah. Better diets, healthcare, and yes, there's regional variation too. People in northern Luzon tend to be a bit taller on average, while those in the Visayas and Mindanao are often slightly shorter. Again, reflecting that complex mix of genes and environment.
Which brings us smack bang into the big, maybe even controversial question. Is there any such thing as a typical Filipino look? Given everything we've just heard, it seems unlikely.
You've hit the nail on the head. The sources are clear. Ask 10 Filipinos, get 10 different answers. It really underlines how complex identity is there. It's not just about looks. It's tied up with culture, history, regional pride.
Can you give us a feel for those different perspectives? What kinds of answers might you get?
Sure. Someone might immediately picture a Tagalog mestizo lighter skin, maybe some Spanish features, perhaps influenced by who they see in movies or TV.
Okay, the media image.
Right. But someone else might strongly argue that the real Filipino look is The darker-skinned, rounder-faced Visayan type, seeing that as more, I suppose, authentically indigenous, less mixed.
And the indigenous groups themselves.
They would likely point to their own heritage, their Austronesian roots,
Yeah.
as the foundational look. And then you have groups like the Ayera.
Who you mentioned have been there the longest.
Exactly. Genetically, they're among the oldest populations, predating the Austronesians by thousands of years. But historically, they've often been marginalized, seen as other. Their very presence powerfully challenges any simple definition of Filipino.
So connecting this back, this whole debate, it's not just about physical traits. It sounds deeply political and social, too.
It absolutely is, because the appearance in the Philippines has historically been tangled up with social class, with colonial hierarchies. It makes it incredibly sensitive. It's not just, what do you look like, but what does that mean in our society's history?
That adds so much weight. To help us really visualize this incredible diversity, the sources give us this lovely little scenario. Can you paint that picture for us? A jeepney ride in Manila.
Yeah, imagine it. You're on a jeepney, packed in, the city rushing by. Maybe next to you is a young guy, sharp features, lighter skin. You can maybe guess some Spanish or Chinese roots there. He's chatting on his phone. Across from him, a woman, maybe with lovely wavy black hair, warm brown skin, holding her baby, perhaps her family's from the Visayas. And then, looking out the window, maybe an older man, an Aita, with that distinctive, tightly curled hair, his face telling a story that goes back millennia, right?
Yeah.
Each person looks different, different features, different skin tones, different hair. But they're all there, together on that jeepney. That is the Philippines.
That's a really powerful image. It captures the complexity, and it leads us to think about the emotions tied up in this pride, struggle, and maybe change.
Definitely. There's a lot of pride.
Yeah.
People are often proud of their specific regional heritage, being Cebuano or Ilocano or having mestizo roots. It's part of their identity. But there's also the struggle. As we said, those beauty standards favoring lighter Euro-Asian looks.
Yeah.
They create real pressure. People can feel excluded or less than if they don't fit that narrow mold.
But things are shifting, you said.
Yes, and this is crucial. The sources emphasize that younger Filipinos especially are really pushing back. There's this growing movement celebrating Morena beauty, embracing indigenous features, using social media to challenge those old, narrow ideals.
So redefining beauty on their own terms.
Exactly. Showing the world and themselves that the Philippines has many beautiful faces, not just one type. It's a really positive change, an assertion of identity.
So we've come full circle. Our deep dive started asking what makes Filipinos look so diverse, and the answer seems overwhelming. Everything. History, genetics, adaptation.
Right. Scientists, historians, they all agree. You simply cannot boil the Philippines down to a single look. It's this incredible meeting point. Austronesian sailors, Chinese traders, air merchants, Spanish colonizers, Americans later on, each left their mark.
So the key takeaway isn't about finding uniformity.
Not at all. It's about understanding the layers. Layers of ancestry, layers of history, layers of adaptation to different environments across the islands. That diversity isn't a problem or a puzzle. It's the country's unique richness. It's a treasure.
So for you listening, what does this all mean? Maybe next time you meet someone Filipino or see photos, notice the variety. Someone with curly hair, another with almond eyes, someone else with Spanish features. Remember, they're all threads in the same incredible tapestry.
Each face is telling part of that story, that millennia-long journey of people meeting and mixing in this amazing archipelago.
A final thought to leave you with.
Maybe just this. Perhaps the real beauty isn't in sameness, is it? It's in that chorus of differences. All those different faces, different histories singing together. That's the story of the Philippines.